Tonight, Canada's public safety minister pressured to resign over the Paul Bernardo prison transfer. Marco Mendicino in the political crosshairs.
His office knew in early March.
I was informed on May 30th.
New details on who knew what and when.
It's very, very troubling, and we need answers.
The international students caught up in an admissions scam.
We are not culprits, we are victims.
A chance to prove their case and stay in the country. Plus, funny and fearless.
My dog is trained to go for the vocal call.
I like to have fun. I just have fun on stage.
A Canadian comedian breaking down barriers, one laugh at a time.
CTV National News with Omar Sachedina.
Good evening, everyone. The Prime Minister's office confirmed today a staff member knew about the possibility of Paul Bernardo's transfer to a lower security prison months before it actually happened. The PMO says it was alerted back in March. The notorious serial killer was moved on May 29th. The same day, the PMO says the Prime Minister was personally briefed. And the Public Safety Minister says he only found out about the transfer after it happened, despite Correctional Service Canada now saying it warned his office about the controversial move twice. CTV's Annie Bergeron-Oliver reports.
The outrage over serial killer Paul Bernardo's move from a maximum to a medium security prison was swift and severe. But now it turns out the Prime Minister's office was given a heads up months before, and the Prime Minister was briefed the day it happened. When a staff member in the Prime Minister's office was alerted in March by the Privy Council office about the possibility of the transfer, inquiries and requests for information were immediately made to the Public Safety Minister's office, a spokesperson said. Yet still, Public Safety Minister Marco Mendicino, who is responsible for corrections, says he wasn't briefed until after Bernardo's transfer.
It's very, very troubling, and we need answers. And we need to know what the nature of the discussions were over those 3 months and who knew what when. I mean, quite frankly, this is such a colossal mess.
Correctional Services of Canada says it gave the Public Safety Minister's office 2 warnings before the transfer. It says the first came by email on March 2nd. Then on May 25th, the department wrote again, saying Bernardo would be moved on May 29th. The minister says he only found out the next day, May 30th, but he didn't comment publicly until the story broke later that week.
If his staff had really kept a secret from him of this enormity, he would have fired them a long time ago. But he hasn't, because he knows and they know that he knew way back then. So will he do the only honorable thing that is left for him to do and resign?
It is the leader of the Conservative Party of Canada who misleads this House when he impugns my knowledge before May 30th. I have made it absolutely clear that that was the day on which I found out. I have taken corrective steps internally with my office.
The lawyer representing Bernardo's victims, Leslie Mahaffey and Kristen French, say the families feel let down.
The way this is unfolded, it just kind of confirms what they wish wasn't being confirmed, that, all the sympathies to victims is nothing but lip service.
Tonight, the Public Safety Minister's office says that they researched ways to change the decision, but were told they could not, that it was up to the Commissioner of Corrections. It still remains unclear, Omar, why so many people knew about Bernardo's transfer, including the Prime Minister, before Marco Mendicino.
All right, Annie, thank you. 1,300 workers at Bell, which owns CTV News, found out today their services would no longer be required. The layoffs show the harsh reality of Canada's changing media landscape and include some of the journalists you're used to seeing right here on this newscast. CTV's Heather Wright reports.
Facing mounting losses in an ever-changing media landscape, Bell announced today it's cutting 1,300 positions and shutting down or selling 9 radio stations.
What really strikes me about it is the breadth of the cuts. It's not just news, it's sports, it's management.
The company says it's part of a plan to significantly adapt how Bell Media and its properties, including CTV, BNN Bloomberg, CP24, and local stations, deliver the news. Layoffs were carried out across the Bell organization, but Bell Media was significantly impacted, with 6% of its workforce cut.
CTV has some really experienced, hardworking, talented journalists who Canadians have come to rely on. And so that's a real loss for Canada and Canadians.
The company also shut down CTV's bureaus in London and Los Angeles, while the Washington bureau has been significantly scaled back. Among those laid off, Chief International Correspondent Paul Workman, London News Bureau Correspondent Danielle Hamamjian, LA Bureau Chief Tom Walters, Ottawa Bureau Chief Joyce Napier, CTV's Senior Political Correspondent Glenn McGregor, and Rosa Huang, the executive producer of CTV National News.
And at the same time that we're cutting out the bottom of local radio across the country, we're cutting out the top of international news by closing down foreign news bureaus across the world, and at a time of heightened geopolitical insecurity.
Bell says its news operations are losing $40 million every year as viewer habits shift away from traditional media.
Part of the problem is the advertising revenue, yes, has gone largely to Facebook and Google, and they haven't found a way to replace it.
The plan includes a move to a single newsroom approach, which will make gathering and delivering the news more efficient and cost-effective. The company also blames a challenging regulatory environment that has been too slow to adjust, such as the slow process around Bill C-18, which is designed to help Canada's media sector by requiring major tech companies to pay for news content.
They've just said we can't wait around anymore. We have to make some changes now. And if it comes out favorably for us in the future, then we'll be better positioned.
Despite the cuts, Bell Media says it plans to hire, adding more reporters across the country. It's a shift to focus more on Canada, with just one correspondent now based outside of the country. Omar.
News that hits close to home, Heather. Thank you for this tonight. In the U.S., severe weather is sweeping across parts of the South with damaging winds, torrential rain, and reports of half a dozen tornadoes in 3 states. The twisters touched down in Alabama, Georgia, and Texas. Hurricane-force winds tore out this office wall in Alabama as workers waited out the storm inside. And here at home, this was the scene in Alberta where tornadoes were confirmed 40 kilometers northeast of Lethbridge. And in Quebec, rain over the past 24 hours has not helped the wildfire situation there. 250 firefighters landed in Quebec City today to help fight some of the 130 fires burning across the province. Around 5,000 international firefighters are in Canada to help battle flames nationwide. A fishing boat full of migrants capsized off the coast of Greece, killing at least 79 people. Dozens of survivors were hospitalized with hypothermia or fever, and hundreds more remain missing. The overloaded boat left Libya and was bound for Italy when it sank. The shipwreck, one of Europe's deadliest in recent years, comes as the UN Refugee Agency revealed a record 110 million people worldwide have been forced to flee their homes as of last month, roughly triple Canada's population. And Canada leads the world in resettling refugees, accepting nearly 50,000 last year. There is hope tonight for dozens of international students facing an uncertain future in Canada. The federal government said today those trapped in overseas admissions fraud will not be deported for now. CTV's Heather Butts reports.
Camped out and fighting to stay in Canada.
We are not culprits, we are victims. So somebody scammed us at the back home and we are re-victimizing here in Canada.
Lovepreet Singh is among the many caught up in a fraud scheme. Immigration agents in India issued fake college acceptance letters to get international students into Canada, not learning their documents were phony until years later when they applied for permanent residency.
I can't express that in words. My dream is shattered. My whole life savings.
Today, the immigration minister announced deportation orders for dozens of students are on hold, with individual cases to be reviewed.
Temporary permission to remain in Canada for a few years will be issued to those who demonstrate that they were actually taken advantage of.
People here applaud the government's move, but know the future is still unclear.
A case-by-case hearing has no guarantee that anything will be different, right? Many of the students here have already presented evidence, have already presented proof that it was these education recruiters who misrepresented them.
Students have hosted rallies and this 2-week sit-in, gathering support from the community and the country's largest federation of unions.
We want to make sure that they are not taken advantage of, that they have the rights that all workers have, and they are very important to our communities. They're important to the economy.
Like Harjit Sidhu, who arrived in 2018 and was granted multiple study and work permits, but wasn't flagged as having an initial fake document until years later.
Doesn't matter, you can stay here or you cannot, but the tag they give you as a fraud, that I don't want. That I don't want because I am innocent.
While there is relief here, there is still much uncertainty. These students say they'll continue to keep the issue in the spotlight until there's a permanent solution. Heather Butts, CTV News, Toronto.
Canada Border Services, helped by law enforcement agencies in Australia and New Zealand, has made 4 major drug seizures in BC involving 6,300 kilograms of methamphetamine. The drugs were found in jugs labeled as canola oil over the last 6 months and were destined for Australia. The largest bust of nearly 3,000 kilograms of meth was in January.
The interception of this shipment and this record-breaking seizure of methamphetamine demonstrates the CBSA's commitment to protecting the integrity of Canada's borders and holding those who break our laws accountable.
This represents to me the communities in Australia being protected by the work being done here.
6 people in Australia have been arrested in the case. More than 12,000 people have died from illicit drugs in British Columbia since the province declared it a public health emergency 7 years ago. And today, BC became the first in Canada to provide universal coverage for opioid treatment medications. CTV's BC Bureau Chief Melanie Nagy on the impact. Melanie.
Omar, the BC government is calling today's announcement a big step in breaking down barriers in order to help people using opioids. As of today, methadone and other prescribed medications used to treat opioid addiction will be fully covered by the province. Last year, more than 34,000 British Columbians utilized opioid agonist medications, or OAT as they're commonly called. While most had the cost covered by the provincial health plan, nearly 2,000 were paying out of pocket. The provincial government says that was an obstacle to stabilizing lives and preventing deaths. So to better help all people struggling with opioid use, officials decided to offer universal coverage on all eligible medications. The province, though, was quick to point out that OAT differs from safe supply, which is an ongoing controversial topic not just in BC but across the country. While safe supply is meant to stop people from using illicit, toxic street drugs, the medications covered by today's announcement are used to manage withdrawal and help people on their road to recovery. Omar?
All right, Melanie, thank you. We are learning new details tonight about the allegations of sex crimes made against a former actor who once appeared in the film Dances with Wolves. Nathan Chasinghorse is also awaiting a trial in the United States on similar charges. Here's CTV's Alberta Bureau Chief Bill Fortier.
Nathan Chasinghorse was just a teenager when he first entered the public spotlight as a child actor in Dances with Wolves. The Hollywood blockbuster was shot in Calgary. Now at 47, he's under the eyes of the law in the U.S. and Canada.
This investigation has spanned over the course of several years.
Today, the CTV Nation revealed details of 9 new charges against Chasinghorse, who has branded himself as a medicine man and has spent a significant amount of time in Western Canada's powwow circuit. He faces 4 counts of sexual assault, 3 of sexual exploitation, 1 count of sexual interference with a person under 16, and 1 charge of removing a child from Canada.
I'm thankful that there are people that are feeling safe and want to come forward and that they are being believed.
Back in January, his Las Vegas house was raided by police. He faces 18 felony charges in Nevada, including sexual assault, kidnapping, and child abuse. U.S. authorities allege Chasinghorse led a cult known as The Circle, claimed to have healing powers, and abuse his leadership role to commit crimes against multiple women and underage girls.
Nobody deserves to be sexually assaulted, especially in these terms where someone represents himself in a position of authority.
He's scheduled to stand trial in front of a grand jury in Nevada, and Chasinghorse also faces charges in Montana and BC.
The prosecution of Nathan Chasinghorse in different legal jurisdictions has required significant planning and cooperation between prosecutors.
Chasinghorse is due back in a Las Vegas courtroom in 1 week. It's not clear how or when he'll answer to these newest charges in Canada. Omar.
All right, Bill, thanks. Russia stepped up its missile strikes in Ukraine today, with at least 6 people killed in the Black Sea city of Odessa and the eastern Donetsk region. But amid all the destruction, there was an incredible survival story. Dramatic video released by Ukrainian police shows a woman being pulled out from under the ruins of a damaged building. She was one of 2 people rescued. Coming up after the break.
It's where the passion for the game grew, right?
Stanley Cup pride on a Manitoba First Nation. Plus,
so let's talk about the elephant in the room.
A Canadian stand-up routine that's a hands-down favorite. Las Vegas is still celebrating tonight its first ever Stanley Cup title, an incredible feat for a team that's only been in the league for 6 years. Far away from the festivities, a First Nation in Manitoba is beaming with pride as one of their own is a member of the winning team. More from CTV's Jill Makishon.
In the desert, a new king of the ice, a Stanley Cup win for the Vegas Golden Knights. A massive celebration on the Strip, and a country away, they were hoisting the cup on a small Manitoba First Nation, celebrating one player, the pride of Sioux Valley Dakota Nation, Zach Whitecloud.
What do you think it'll be like to see Whitecloud on the Stanley Cup?
It's dream come true. Pretending I've won it on the backyard rink out there in minus 40-degree weather. Can't feel my feet, my hands, and you think about those times, right? It's where the passion for the game.
And pride in his name, making headlines after an announcer made an offending comment during an earlier playoff series and later apologized.
I carry my grandfather's last name, and nothing makes me more proud than to be able to do that.
The hockey player isn't the first Indigenous NHL star from Manitoba, but he is the first from Sioux Valley.
He's really an inspiration to our young people, showing them that anything is possible, that you can achieve anything that you set your mind to. We're just so proud of him, and he's just been such an inspiration to our community.
The hundreds who gathered to cheer him on in the finals will do it again in person when the cup comes home to their First Nation. Jill Makishon, CTV News, Winnipeg.
Still ahead. An out-of-this-world choice for the Calgary Stampede. For people affected by the wildfires across Canada this year, their ordeal, sadly, may just be getting started. That's one of the lessons learned in the village of Lytton, British Columbia, which was destroyed by an inferno 2 years ago. CTV's Paul Bernardo on the complicated road to rebuilding.
There's still not much to see in what was once the village of Lytton until the June 30th, 2021 fire that tore through the community.
The fire burned so hot that witnesses to the aftermath described seeing car batteries that had boiled to the ground. So the level of environmental contamination was extraordinary.
The charred structures are gone, power has been restored, soil remediation is close to complete. A step forward for the village will be lifting the local state of emergency.
It was like a big leap over a hurdle, let me tell you, a 2-year hurdle.
But rebuilding still has not begun.
People are feeling forgotten. When I talk to people, it's like they're buried in bureaucracy.
Critics blame the province, saying the rebuilding process has been confusing, with no timeline for completion of archaeological assessments or clear information about what happens if artifacts are found.
What are the rules, and what does it mean to a homeowner's property if significant finds are found on that property? It has been absolutely frustrating trying to get clarity around that.
According to the province, 10 properties have so far been deemed clear by archaeologists, and to date, no one has been told they can't rebuild. However, it's a different scenario for a dozen other properties.
For the remaining 12, they've been provided information about what other work has to be done. Usually it involves shovel testing, additional surface testing.
Depending on what is found, there could be restrictions on rebuilding, such as using slab-on-grade construction.
It's hard to make something this complicated simple, I must admit.
It's hoped the hiring of 2 new recovery managers will move things forward in Lytton as people tire of the wait to go home. Michelle Bernardo, CTV News.
And the Calgary Stampede has selected an astronaut to be this year's summer parade marshal. Jeremy Hansen will lead the July 7th parade that kicks off the 10-day extravaganza. Hansen will be the first Canadian to journey to the moon as part of the Artemis 2 mission. After the break,
They really let me be myself, and it was great.
the Canadian comic making people laugh while breaking barriers. A Canadian comedian is making headlines for an appearance on America's Got Talent. He got some big laughs, even though he can't speak. CTV's John Veneveli Rao on a remarkable performer inspiring others.
I wonder who's coming now.
Last night, as he walked out on stage, millions of Americans got their first look at Aaron Belisle, who faces physical challenges, can't speak, and communicates using his phone. First asked by the judges, what is his talent?
Well, I can't dance, so I'm going to do stand-up comedy.
Oh, wonderful! Belisle, who lives with cerebral palsy, talks using a text-to-voice feature, and his edgy style of comedy surprised the audience and left them laughing.
I know what you're all thinking. Who ordered Stephen Hawking off of Wish.com? He might be smarter than me, but I would beat him in a race. Unless the race is downhill, then I'm screwed.
Belisle went on to get a standing ovation and unanimous yes votes from the judges. We asked Belisle, what was it like?
It was fun. I was pleasantly surprised by the entire experience. I was afraid that I would be kind of limited in what I can say, and all of that, but they really let me be myself, and it was great.
Belisle is an engineer originally from North Bay, Ontario, who while on a trip to Portugal last year, went to an open mic night at a cafe. Some of the comics he met thought he was funny and urged him to give it a shot.
This is my first time doing comedy. I hope you like it, but if you don't, take a lesson from me and say nothing.
He started posting videos on TikTok, hoping to break down barriers.
It's a brain disability. My brain doesn't know how to talk to all of my muscles.
And says growing up with disabilities was hard.
And while I'm on stage having fun, I get to talk about my struggles and talk about inequity and the disrespectful way people act in a funny way. And it's a way to educate people.
He can't believe all the attention he's been getting. Praised by fellow Canadian Howie Mandel.
You open up the conversation and normalize humanity and originality, and you're funny.
Aaron says performing has given him a voice like never before. He's now got upcoming shows in Canada and says he hopes to show people, no matter who you are or how you look, in life there are always ways to find joy. John Veneveli Rao, CTV News, Toronto.
That's beautiful to see. And that's a snapshot of this Wednesday for all of us at CTV National News. Thank you for watching and have a good night.